Hello, everybody. My name is Dan Skip Allen, and this is another edition of the Top 5 Weekly. I want to thank my panelists, once again, Andrew and Steven, and my regular co-host on the Best Damn Movie Show, Vinny, is here. So everybody introduce themselves. Andrew, starting with you.
Hello, I'm Andrew, and this is my sixth time in a row being on Top 5 Weekly. I'm here to talk remakes.
And then Steven.
Hello, I'm Stephen Billings. This is my sixth time being on. And remakes. I don't care if you don't like them. Remakes can be cool.
And my co-host from the Best Damn Movie Show, Vinny.
Hey, listen, I'm Vince LaSpada, and listen, I hate remakes. Skip knows I hate remakes, but listen, I'll talk about them, and listen, let's just have a good time.
All right, that question that you came up with, Steven, is going to be an interesting one now. All right, so we aren't talking about a single person this week, an actor, or actress, or director. We're talking about a subject, and the topic this week is remakes. Because of the Magnificent Seven, that is a remake of a remake. I decided we're going to do remakes this week. So starting with Andrew, what is your number 5 remake on your list? Andrew.
Oh, sorry. You skipped there. My number 5 is Scarface. Scarface came out in 1983, directed by Brian De Palma. I think many people know about Scarface. It's a pop culture iconic film starring Al Pacino, Stephen Bauer, Michelle Pfeiffer, and it's a remake of a 1932 film directed by the great Howard Hawks, starring Paul Muni and George Raft. And it's a great film about the American dream, or at least the corrupted version of the American dream.
All right, going to Steven now. Steven, what's your number 5 remake?
My number 5 is kind of an odd remake. It's not one I really was aware of until I started looking into remakes. And that is 1995's Heat. And Heat is what's weird is Heat is a remake by the same director who made the original. Michael Mann, who's the director of Heat, also made a movie 5 years earlier called L.A. Takedown. And it was supposed to be a TV series, but then the pilot didn't get picked up. So then they released it as a direct-to-TV movie. And when he obviously wasn't completely satisfied, he decided to remake his own movie 5 years later, or 6 years later. And it's obviously, Heat is a movie that influenced a genre. Like the heist movie, when people think of heist movies, they think of Heat. Dark Knight was very heavily influenced by Heat. Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, Val Kilmer, who's to me the standout in that movie. I really love Val Kilmer in that movie. And it's like I said, just such an influential film. Check it out if you haven't seen it. The in the city shootout scene, awesome.
Yeah, well, I learned something new today, Steven. I did not know Heat was a remake. All right, Vinny, what is your number 5 remake? This is going to be good.
Well, it's funny because Andrew, is it right?
Yeah.
My number 5 was Andrew's number 5, Scarface, 1983. And here's something funny about it. I actually worked for Manny, Stephen Burring, for one day in Orlando for the Spanish Film Festival, and my job was to get everybody that was either Spanish or anybody that liked Scarface and come down to the Orlando, the brand new Orlando, Skip, what's the Orlando theater called?
Enzion?
No, the one we saw, what was the other movie he just did? With Al Pacino, what did he just do? Danny Collins, what's the theater?
The Cobb Theater.
So I had to get everybody on the street to come and to come see this Q&A from the legendary guy that played Manny in Scarface, and that was really cool because I've never met somebody so iconic in a movie like that. But other than that, it is a remake from a 1932 flick. And I tell you what, I can't tell anybody else another good gangster film besides this one. And you know what? The remake and the re-remake are similar, but I feel like they both have their own sticks to stand on.
Yeah, no, you're right about that. Both versions are different, and that's the thing about remakes, which makes a remake good. If the remake stands on its own and it's different than the original, then it has its own legs to stand on, like you said, Vinny. And Scarface does that, and I'm sure we'll talk more about Scarface as we go along. My number 5 is The Departed, Martin Scorsese's 2006 film about Boston gangsters and the FBI and so forth. And The Departed is a remake of Infernal Affairs, which came out in 2002. And that's a Japanese movie. And we're in that whole deal where we're taking Japanese movies and we're making them into American movies, that whole run there for a while there. And or we're taking foreign movies and we're making them into American movies because we like them. But Departed is, Martin Scorsese won the Oscar. Is it my favorite Martin Scorsese film? No. Is it one of my favorites? Yes. I'm from Boston. I absolutely love this film. The cast is phenomenal. Mark Wahlberg, Alec Baldwin, Jack Nicholson, Leonardo DiCaprio, Matt Damon. How can you go wrong with this? Vera Farmiga, one of Vinny's favorites. So I got The Departed at number 5. All right. Going back to Andrew, what's your number 4?
My number 4 is True Grit. True Grit, which came out 2010, directed by the Coen brothers. It's a remake of a 1969 film directed by Henry Hathaway, starring the famous John Wayne. And the Coen brothers film is very much closely a shot-for-shot remake, but it has a little Coen brothers flair to it. It stars Jeff Bridges, Matt Damon, Josh Brolin, Haley Steinfeld in her first role, kind of a breakout child role for her. And it's a fantastic film.
Yeah, I agree with you. I tend to like the original True Grit better, but I can't argue with anybody that likes that one. Steven, what's your number 4?
My number 4 is, I think, another one that might surprise some of you. It's a movie from 1996, The Birdcage. The Birdcage is actually a remake. It's from a French film, which I'm not going to try to pronounce it because I can't do it. But I'm pretty sure it's like La Cage something. And I'm going to move on from that. But basically, if you've seen Birdcage, the premise is basically that this gay couple, in this version played by Robin Williams and Nathan Lane, their son comes home and is planning to be married, but is trying to make sure that his fiance's parents don't find out about his parents being gay, so they try to act like a straight couple, and it creates obviously a lot of great comedy. Robin Williams, one of my favorite performances from him. And I don't know much about the original. I know that it was very popular, and it came out in 1978, and it actually got nominated for 3 Oscars. The director got nominated, and it was a very popular film. So that's ultimately, I think, why eventually they decided to make it in America. And then the American version was still very popular too. So it's a very fun film. If you haven't watched it, I think it's on HBO right now, so check it out.
All right, Vinny, it's your turn. What's your number 4 remake?
My number 4 is A Family's Home is Haunted by a Group of Ghosts. I'm talking about the 1982 Poltergeist, starring Craig T. Nelson. And the new one is made in 2015, starring Sam Rockwell. Both these movies are similar, but I like how the new one, with all the new effects, like they didn't have back in the 80s. I like how with the newer remakes they can turn something into what they wanted to back in the 80s into this masterpiece. And it's crazy because like a lot of people that I talk to don't even look at special features for DVDs, and it's like me, I'm a special feature kind of guy, and it's like I like to see how things are made and what's fake and what's real. And Poltergeist, another classic, that everybody was scared of to watch, back in the 80s. And I know some people that still won't even watch it because they're scared of it.
Yeah, Poltergeist is one of my favorite horror movies of all time. Oh, my God. I was just so scared. They're saying that Steven Spielberg didn't direct it, but Insider
He wrote it.
Said that he did direct it. He basically told the director what to do because he was like standing behind him or something like that. But yeah, that movie, oh God, that was such a scary movie as a kid. I was only like 12 or 13 years. I mean, like 9 years old. I mean, I was like 9 years old when Poltergeist came out. Oh man, that little girl, I can remember her. They're here and sitting in front of the TV. But my number 4 is Let Me In. Let Me In. It's from 2010. It's a remake of a Swedish horror film called Let the Right One In. And it stars Chloe Grace Moretz and Cody Smith-McPhee. With this girl, she's living in this apartment complex, and this little boy comes in, and it happens the little boy is a vampire, and she kind of befriends him and stuff like that. The Swedish version is so freaking good. I cannot say how much you should go out and see the Swedish version of this, Let the Right One In. But shockingly enough, Let Me In is a great film. I forget the director. God almighty. He's one of the up-and-coming good directors we got.
Yeah, I think it's Matt Reeves.
Matt Reeves, that's it. My bad. I knew his name, and I just couldn't remember it. Matt Reeves, this guy is on everybody's list of wanting him to direct some stuff. He did the Planet of the Apes movies, and so I think it was – did he do both Planet of the Apes or just the second one?
Just the second one. Rupert Wyatt did the first one.
Yeah, the second one. Oh, my God. Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Are you kidding me? That thing was phenomenal. But this guy, Matt Reeves, he did a great job on Let Me In. And that was one of Chloe Grace Moretz's better performances, in my opinion. She is taking a very well-deserved break from Hollywood. She needs a break. But Let Me In, that's my number 4. All right, so Steven came up with a question. I always, around this time, I'll ask, what is your very first remake that you saw? Steven and I talked about it, and I decided to change the question this week. And Vinny, I'm sure Vinny's going to have a lot to say about this. What do you like or dislike about remakes? Should we keep making remakes, or should remakes completely stop altogether? Starting with Andrew, we're going to let Vinny go last because I know he's got a lot to say on this. Starting with Andrew, what do you think about this subject?
Oh boy, it's difficult because there are some remakes that are great films, and there are some remakes that are terrible films. So there needs to be a balance between what you remake and what you don't remake. Right now, the hot thing seems to be remaking old movies into television shows, and a lot of these don't translate well at all, and makes you question what were they thinking doing that. Like, for example, they turned The Exorcist into a television series, and I'm like, that doesn't really quite work if you're doing it on network television. It takes away everything that makes The Exorcist great when you have to water it down into a new form. But when it comes to remakes, I don't like to compare them to the originals when I'm judging them, because I like to give them the opportunity to stand on their own. It's very interesting to have a conversation or debate about which one is better, the original or the remake. But I feel like that's a different conversation for a different time. But I think no matter what we think, Hollywood's going to keep doing it, because if it makes money, they won't stop it.
All right, that's pretty good. All right, Steven, what do you think about all this?
Ultimately, I'm not one of these people that really hate remakes. I think that the issue, kind of like what Andrew said, is that we need to be a little bit more choosy about what we remake. Don't remake things just off of name recognition. Remake something that needs a remake, something that if you update it with the technical and stuff like that, that will make it a better movie, then do it. The one thing about remakes, though, that I don't think it's talked about enough, and maybe my opinion isn't right, but I think that the one thing about remakes that is bad is if your remake is bad, I think it deters people from watching the originals. People say that it doesn't have an effect, but I think that for this younger generation, if they see a movie and it's a remake and it sucks, and then we're like, hey, but the original is awesome. A lot of them are going to be like, you know what, I'm not interested in this. I'm not going to check out the original. And that's sad. And I think that that's what happens in the long run, is that it does affect something, you know. So I think that that's something to think about in Hollywood, is they need to start being more choosy about what they remake, instead of just seeing something that is a well-known name and being like, that was good at one point, let's make it good again, hopefully. And if it isn't, it's going to keep people from wanting to watch the original. I mean, it's just that's my biggest point.
Yeah, no, you make a good point. All right, Vinny, it's your turn. I'm going to go last. I'm going to let you rant about this subject for a few minutes.
Well, I tell you, every single week on the Best Damn Movie Show, we talk about remakes, and there's always a piece of news and articles that comes in about they're going to remake something, they're going to redo something, and lately it's been about Spider-Man. I'm just going to tell you this. Hollywood is a dead deal. It's dead. Like, there's nothing good coming out of Hollywood. I mean, listen, you could put Bambi and Barbie and, like, Gumby all on one horse and let it gallop along, and people be like, oh my God, there's 3 of the greatest characters of all time. Let's go and see it. But here's the problem. Remakes are, you know what? Listen, I love Back to the Future, okay? Everybody knows this. Skip knows this. If they touch Back to the Future, I would have to chop somebody's hand off. And this is what I'm going to say, is that, you know, I feel like remakes too, you know, when they start making movies like Lethal Weapon 1, 2, 3, 4, Halloween 19,000, you know, they're out of ideas. So, you know, and like, you know, Rob Zombie, he comes up with these new ideas for these movies, you know, but it's like, it's been done before. Like, okay, special effects, all right, is way better than it is now than it was in the 90s and the 70s and the 80s. But what kills me is that they still try to remake it when, you know, listen, I like the idea of TV shows. You know, I know ABC, NBC, Fox, and I know CBS, they're very hard to sell to because A, it's for families, and B, you can't curse, you can't show a lot of blood, and you can't do what you want to do. And that's why I feel like that if you're going to remake something, why not do it in a TV show? I mean, listen, if you're going to do an hour and a half to 2 hours in a movie, you can break that up just like they did with Ash versus Evil Dead. They were going to make another movie. What they do? They made a great series on Starz that I mean, I know me, I like it. I really do. I think, you know, Bruce Campbell reprises his role as you know, and it's a genius thing. But remakes, to me, I really don't like them, and sometimes I wait till they come out on DVD because I just don't think it's worth going to see.
Well, I know. I actually agree with Vinny as far as Ash vs. Evil Dead. That was a really good idea to turn that into a TV show. And it was only a half-hour TV show. It was very funny. It was bloody. It was gory. It was funny. What an entertaining show. I highly recommend that. That's on Stars on Demand if you haven't seen Ash vs. Evil Dead. As far as, I mean, we're talking about some of the best remakes ever on our list. These are our favorite remakes, and pretty much we're more than likely, we're probably speaking for most of the general audience or public, like the same remakes that we like. But just recently, besides the Magnificent Seven, we had the Blair Witch, Ben-Hur. Now, starting off with Ben-Hur, one of the greatest films of all time, no matter how, I mean, you may not think so, but I think so. And Swords and Sandals is such a tough genre to make a film of. Why are you making it a remake of a classic Swords and Sandals? I know Timur Bekmambetov. He had like the kind of like quick kind of action and his style, but I just, and then Blair Witch. I mean, I don't want to spoil it, but I mean, I wasn't a fan of what's it called? You're Next. I did like The Guest. Brian Wingard, he's one for two for me. I did not like the Blair Witch. I'm not going to get into spoilers on why I didn't like it. When it was The Woods, I was like, all right, this looks interesting. I'm hearing good things about this. And I may not have even thought about the Blair Witch if they didn't go out and have this whole campaign about changing it from The Woods to the Blair Witch. But I gave it a chance. I give everything a chance because I see everything. But The Magnificent Seven, on the other hand, I thought Antoine Fuqua did a fantastic job of changing things up. There was some different characters that they added. We have an Asian character, we have an Indian, we have a Mexican, we have all these different characters, a black guy. But I think the comedy relief of Chris Pratt off of Denzel Washington made that film different. I know there was a little bit of banter between Steve McQueen and Yul Brynner, but not as much as in Antoine Fuqua. So I thought this was an actual better version of The Magnificent Seven, even though I do like the original. Now that's a whole different ball of wax considered Seven Samurai. Everybody considers Seven Samurai, if you've seen it, to be one of the greatest films of all time. I have not seen it. I know that's like, God forbid, how dare you not see this film. I tried to buy the Criterion Collection, but they were all sold out. So I did not get the Criterion Collection of Seven Samurai. But I will see it, and I will give my review of Seven Samurai eventually. Kurosawa, one of the great directors of all time. But I'm right with all you guys. The one thing we agree with is when it's done right, or if it's something that's a little known property that somebody says, you know what, I want to take that, I'm going to put my own spin on it and make it better, then okay, go ahead and do it. And if it works, great. And then we have the original that we grew up with, like Fright Night. They did Fright Night. The original Fright Night was a campy 80s horror movie. The new Fright Night was more modern, but it wasn't as good as the original. So we still have the originals, such as RoboCop. We have the original RoboCop. Even though they made a new RoboCop, I liked the new RoboCop, but a lot of people didn't. So it's not taking away from the original. I'm quoting John Campea here. John Campea says, all right, yeah, remake it. You're not going to take the original away from me. I'm still having that original in my brain, in my memory, and so you can't take that away, and all you can do is give me something better or worse, and then if it's worse, I don't have to remember that. I remember the original Ben-Hur, and that's what I'm going to remember. And I remember the original Blair Witch, and I also remember the original Magnificent Seven, and I like the new one. So there you go. Antoine Fuqua gave me another film I have to watch that I like. So you can still have the classics, and you still have them in your memory, in your heart. But like we're talking about the best remakes. So now these are the best ones of all these remakes. So we're going to have these in our hearts and our memories, and we can share these versions with our friends. And so I think remakes are good for the most part. So that's my take on remakes. All right, we're going to go back to Andrew. We're going to go to number 3. Number 3 remake, Andrew.
My number 3 remake is The Thing from 1982, directed by John Carpenter, starring Kurt Russell. And it is just a fantastic horror thriller. It's kind of like a haunted house movie, but it's in the Antarctic. And it's just a fantastic, fantastic film. The practical effects in this film still stand up today as some of the best ever. John Carpenter is one of, I would say, the most original filmmakers to come around in the 70s and 80s. And it's fantastic. It's a remake of a film called The Thing from Another Planet from 1951, which has the very similar plot, but, obviously things are different in terms of, special effects and technology and stuff like that, but I would still recommend seeing the original if you really, really like the 1982 film.
Yeah, I'm sure a couple of us might talk a little bit more about that before the show's over, Andrew. Steven, what is your number 3?
My number 3 is one that when I saw it in the theaters, man, I just loved it, and I had to I went back and saw it in the theaters, I think maybe 3 or 4 times, and I'd see it with another friend and another friend, and that's 3:10 to Yuma. The cast alone got me in the theater. You got Russell Crowe, you got Christian Bale, and you got Ben Foster, who is the standout in this film, steals the show. The original's from 1957, and I have not seen the original yet. I really want to see it, but all I know is that I'm pretty sure if somebody was like, no, the 57 version's better, I would be like, Ben Foster, and then I would win. Because Ben Foster is the best. You know it. You guys have seen it. Ben Foster is a badass in this movie, and he's not even the star. But this movie's basically about a family who's kind of going through a rough time. He's a farmer, and basically this criminal played by Russell Crowe gets captured at the beginning, and they need people to send him to Yuma. They need a group of guys to get together to send him to Yuma to put him on a train, take him to prison. And Christian Bale volunteers to be one of them, and they go through this whole. It's a crazy movie, and it's a fun western, and it's got great shootouts as most westerns do. And Ben Foster.
I had 3:10 to Yuma on my honorable mentions. It was a tough omission because I really do like that film a lot, and definitely the 2007 version is better than the other. And when all the reviews were coming out about that, Steven, everybody was like, wow, are you kidding me? They actually made a better version of this film. And you forgot one person in the film that's in it as well. Logan Lerman.
Logan Lerman, yes. And James Mangold directed it. Also did Walk the Line. So.
Yeah. Did James Mangold do Wolverine? Too?
The second one.
That's what I thought. Yeah, I one of my favorite westerns. I think I put it in my top 10 westerns. You can go to my Instagram page or my Facebook page and look at my top 10 westerns. I posted that on Friday. A self-plug there. All right, Vinny, what is your number 3?
My number 3 is Dawn of the Dead, 1978. It's such a classic. And what I love about this film, too, is a lot of the guys are a lot older now that were in the 1978 original, but there is a lot of them that are still working actors. Like I know Ken Foree's still acting. I know David Early's still acting. And there's a couple other ones on the list that I always see at Spooky Empire. Every year they're there, and I talk about it. And Tom Savini, which he was the makeup artist for the movie, and he helped write it. He's now involved in the new Friday the 13th video game and TV series that's supposed to hit. It was supposed to be on TNT, but they canceled it, so they're going to make it into a movie again, which, again, another remake. But the Dawn of the Dead in 2000, or it was, no, 2004? Yeah, it was 4. I was going to say 14. That one, I like how it still stays with the structure of the 1978 one, where it's still done in the mall. Now, one thing I do appreciate about remakes is that there is a beginning story to a movie with the new ones. Then in the old ones, it's mostly they're just getting right into the blood, guts, and gore, which I don't mind. But, I like when they tell a story to where there's a beginning, a middle, and an end, not just they're stuck in a mall or they're stuck somewhere and they have to get out. But I like the new one. I like the old one. So it's a toss-up for me. But you know what? I always say the remakes are always better. Oh, no, excuse me. No, I'm wrong.
Really?
No, I'm wrong. Sorry. The originals are always better. I don't even know why I said that, but no, to me, originals are always better. And like you said, if they pick and choose what remakes come out, and they do, is better than just, hey, listen, this movie hasn't been out for 20 years. Let's just remake it because we can do it. We can make a bunch of money.
Yeah, you're right. They got to pick and choose the right things. I think we talked about in that when we asked the question. All right, my number 3 is the 1986 The Fly, David Cronenberg's classic, starring Jeff Goldblum and Gina Davis. Oh my God, this is probably one of the scariest movies I've ever seen. Having a man turn into a living fly. I mean, it is so freaking disgusting, but it is so great. I mean, I get grossed out by this type of thing, but this movie is just such an absolute classic. It's the remake of the Fly from 1958, and it's better. Anybody will say it's an all-around better film than the 1958 Fly.
Oh yeah, it is.
I mean, it's just such a classic, and my number 2 and number 1 have to be great if The Fly is my number 3. So my guess is somebody on this list is going to have The Fly. In our panel is going to have The Fly before too long here. All right, we're going to go to number 2. Andrew, what is your number 2?
My number 2 is A Fistful of Dollars. Directed by Sergio Leone, came out in 1964. It's starring Clint Eastwood. It's the first film in his spaghetti western trilogy. Essentially, Clint Eastwood comes to town, and these two warring gangs are fighting each other, and he kind of tries to play both sides, and it's very, very iconic in the shootout at the end. It's a phenomenal film. It is a remake of Akira Kurosawa's Yojimbo, which came out in 1961, which is essentially, it's the same plot. Sergio Leone took the same structure and took it from feudal Japan and put it into the American West. The original starred Toshiro Mifune, who was in several Kurosawa films, and it's a phenomenal film. I highly recommend watching both. I personally started with Yojimbo and then watched A Fistful of Dollars. If you've already seen one, see the other. They're both worth your time.
I'll tell you what. I was I don't know what I was reading something about this or watching a podcast, and they're talking about this, and this started a lawsuit because like you said, Andrew, it was like in a direct remake. They just took it and put it in the Old West, and there was a lawsuit, and Kurosawa won. But then recently, right afterwards, they took Seven Samurai, turned it into the Magnificent Seven. So he was like, you know what? Hell with this crap. I'm not even going to go try to get involved with another lawsuit about this. But he won the first one based on A Fistful of Dollars. But that's a good one, Andrew. Steven, what's your number 2?
My number 2 is one that's been brought up so far by one of you guys. I think Andrew brought it up. True Grit. True Grit to me it was hard. I almost put it at my number 1 because I feel like it's vastly better than the original. Like, if you watch the original, if you know anything about the book that it's based on, apparently the original is nothing like the book. It's a lot darker in tone. The end is a lot darker. If you watch the original, the end has John Wayne riding away, and then he gets freeze framed, and then it's like happy ending. But in the version you see in the 2010, which is Coen Brothers, it ends with spoiler. She gets bit by a snake, loses her arm, and then you see the grave of the Jeff Bridges character, and she walks away. She's it's like very dark, very grim, but it's true to the source material, which makes it to me better. And honestly, aesthetically, it's a better film. The Coen Brothers, it's a better film. It's well written, and it also made not only the Rooster character played by Jeff Bridges a greater character, but the girl, Haley Steinfeld's character, was a way better character in this film. And she got nominated for an Oscar. So it's like, all around, I just think this movie vastly improves on the original, which is what remakes should do, in a sense, or at least be different. And it's just a great film. It's one of Coen Brothers' kind of underrated movies,
No, I like the 2007 True Grit. I just like the original better. I mean, John Wayne was iconic in that film, whether you like it, the ending or whatever. But I tend to like a few other Coen Brothers movies better than True Grit. Vinny, what's your number 3? Or number 2? Number 2, I should say.
I was going to say, we're going backwards now, huh? My number 2 is Gone in 60 Seconds. I love a good car chase. I love cars that are just racing around, stunts. And I'm more of a fan of the excuse me. I'm more of a fan of the Nicolas Cage and Angelina Jolie's 2000 version than the 1974 version. And again, I feel like, they can only do so much back in the 70s and 80s with special effects and cars and things like that. But again, it's a great theft movie, and for any race fan that likes, cars, or they soup cars up, or, they're a car enthusiast, this movie's for them.
Yeah, and another kind of a robbing movie involving cars was The Italian Job, and I actually like the remake of that better than the original. The Mini Coopers, they brought the Mini Coopers back for that, the new Italian Job. All right, my number 2 is what Andrew, I think, had at number 3, The Thing. The Thing from 1982. It's a remake of The Thing from Another World from 1951. John Carpenter, I mean, what can you say? Kurt Russell, I mean, what can you say? But this movie is probably in my top, next to The Fly and Alien and Aliens. This is in my top 5 horror movies of all time. This movie, oh my God. Forget about the new version that they did. Don't even watch that crap. And, coming into this, I told the guys we could have remakes of remakes, because we have remakes of remakes out there. And The Thing is one of those, but we're not going to remember the remake of the remake. We just want the remake. And the 1982 version of the Thing is, oh my God, is that so good. The cold. See, I hate cold weather. So that adds the claustrophobia for me. To have some kind of creature that could take over your body and, gross. That movie, God almighty. If people that know me, I'm not a fan of horror movies, but when they're done right, I will sing their praises. And The Thing and The Fly are 2 of the greatest of all time. And so I can sing their praises a lot because they're great movies. So now, anybody with honorable mentions? Andrew, do you got any honorable mentions?
I do have one. Maybe I'll kick it out to the panel to see what they think, because I wasn't quite sure if it counted as a remake. It's Terry Gilliam's 12 Monkeys. It's technically a remake of a 1962 French film called La Jetée, but Terry Gilliam actually hadn't seen the film La Jetée, so he said that it wasn't a remake, but if you watch the original film and watch 12 Monkeys, it's the exact same plot.
It's a remake, Andrew.
Yeah, I saw it on most lists, but I didn't quite know if it counted as a remake.
All right, Steven, you got any honorable mentions?
I do. The Thing is not on my list. I had to choose between The Thing and my number 1, because I didn't want to. I feel like that they're very similar. It's like these remake lists you could make a good, like horrors and westerns are the ones that get remade a lot that are the best. And I didn't want to put all horror and all westerns on my list. So I kind of had to choose between this one and that one. But The Departed, obviously a really good remake. There's a lot of them, man. Them are the 2 that kind of were hard to keep off the list, but I decided to go in a different route. So,
Vinny, you got any honorable mentions?
I got 2. I got Ocean's 11, which it's hard for me because I like the 1960 version more than the 2001, and also Carrie, which to me it's hard because well, actually it's really not hard because I like some of the special effects in the new one, but the 1973 one was way better. Those are my only honorable mentions.
I'm glad that didn't make your list, Vinny, because I would have had a problem with that. No,
What Carrie?
that remake is garbage.
I said I only like the special effects. You goof.
I know. All right, I have a list of 5. I always do 5 when I do honorable mentions. So, 310 to Yuma, 2007. Girl with the Dragon Tattoo from 2011. Oh God, if you have not seen either version of the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, do yourself a favor. The Swedish versions, there's 3 of them. But see all of them, but see the American version because this is a really good film. And I thought for sure they were going to go in and do the second one, the girl who was on fire, or what's it called? The girl who kicked the hornet's. No, that's the third one. The girl who kicked the hornet's nest was the third one. So I can't think of the second one, but I was shocked that they didn't go into production on the second one right after the first one. So there was problems with Daniel Craig and David Fincher, but
I think it was a box office thing. I don't think it made as much money as Sony wanted it to.
Oh.
Also, I think like David Fincher was very expensive as well as Daniel Craig and all that. So there was probably a lot of behind the scenes problems.
Wow, that's too bad. 1991's Cape Fear. Oh, Robert De Niro. Come out, wherever you are. Oh, I love that. True Grit, I got the 69. I put the 69, because it's the and very surprising. I'm shocked that I actually liked this movie, and it ended up on my honorable mention. That's The Karate Kid. The Karate Kid with Jaden Pinkett Smith.
Are you kidding me?
I actually liked it.
Really?
I'd rather stab my face with bananas and watch that movie again.
He doesn't do karate.
He's a joke of an actor.
I know, but I like the movie. What can I say? You hate me for that. Sorry, but I actually like The Karate Kid with Jaden Smith and Jackie Chan. All right, so those are my honorable mentions. Going with our number 1 here, Andrew. What is your number 1?
My number 1 is. This is just a personal pick for me, but it's The Departed. It's a film that directed by Martin Scorsese, who is probably my favorite living filmmaker. It was the film that finally got him the awards that he deserved like 20, 30 years in the past with films like Taxi Driver and Goodfellas and Raging Bull. It was kind of a culmination of a decades-long career for him in terms of fame and popularity. And also the cast is fantastic. Like you said earlier, Matt Damon, Leonardo DiCaprio, Jack Nicholson, and probably his last great role of his career, Vera Farmiga, Mark Wahlberg, Alec Baldwin. And it's a great film about gangsters and police and kind of the crossing of both. Also, it's a remake of the Hong Kong film Infernal Affairs, which is a fantastic film, and I would highly recommend people seeing that because it is the same general premise, but Infernal Affairs takes it a little bit differently, and it is a fantastic film.
Yeah, I own Infernal Affairs, and I have to agree with Andrew. That movie is phenomenal, but I love The Departed in so many other different ways. Steven, what is your number 1? I can't wait for this.
My number 1 is one that's been brought up. And like I said, I wanted to pick between this one and another one, and that's 1986 The Fly. To me, the reason why it's almost like a personal pick too, because The Thing is awesome. The Thing is awesome. It would be on my list if I wasn't trying to have a variety, but I wanted to have a little bit of variety. The Fly was the first Cronenberg movie I'd seen. And it really blew me away, and it really got me into Cronenberg, which the next Cronenberg film I watched was Scanners, which even blew me away even more. The Fly, Jeff Goldblum, maybe his best performance ever. And Gina Davis, and it's body horror at its best. And it vastly improves on the original, as we alluded to before. The original being made in the 50s kind of has some weird 50s moments where it's just like, they're like, I love my life. Hey, it's a beautiful day. Like it's just moments like that where you're like, this doesn't seem like the same tone. And it's, and also really, it's an allegory on disease, and then, being that it's in the 80s, the AIDS, they had a lot of sex, and then suddenly it's like he's diseased. It's like, if you look into it, it's weird. But Cronenberg's become one of my favorite directors, and this film if you like gross out horror movies, this is the one for you. The effects still hold up to me, even though they're practical and they can be a little bit cheesy to some. I think they hold up still. So The Fly, awesome, number one. Drop the mic.
Yeah, I already talked about it. It's such oh god, that movie disgusts me, but it disgusts me in a great way, and that's what's great about a great horror movie. All right, Vinny, what is your number one?
Well, my number one comes from one of the great directors of horror, Mr. John Carpenter's 1978 Halloween, starring Jamie Lee Curtis. And what I like about the original Halloween is that back in the 70s, the music was so much better for horror. I mean, the composers, and John Carpenter composed that whole entire soundtrack. Today you don't get that. You get porn music today. That's what you get. You don't get the classic piano and sound effects and things like that. But then, on the other hand, you have a sick guy named Rob Zombie that started his Halloween in 2007, which I think the guts and the blood is a little bit more sicker than John Carpenter's. But I still like John Carpenter's story. But it's always cool and it's always good to see somebody else's vision. Now, people can say it wasn't that great, or I didn't like it, but I didn't like it more than I like John Carpenter's. But you know what? It's there. There's two versions of it. You pick which one you like, and there's no right or wrong answer there.
No, I mean, Halloween is one of my favorite horror movies. It's like 5 on my list of favorite horror movies of all time. I know I'm in the minority like Vinny. I actually liked Rob Zombie's Halloween. I mean, I thought he updated the character, updated to a modern day audience, modern day story and stuff. So
my problem with Halloween, the remake, is that it's doing what is the bad thing about a lot of these remakes of these horror movies, is taking away the mysticism, taking away the mystery of the character. They have to show the origin, which they're talking about doing for the Jason remake, is showing the origin of Jason. I don't need to see what Jason's breakfast looked like, what he ate for breakfast. I don't need to know that. I don't need to know what Michael Myers, I don't need to know about his mom and all that. I just need a quick scene of him killing them and be done with it. Like, I don't need to know that. I don't need to see him with his mask off. Why do I need to see that? I don't.
Well,
Jesus Christ.
I mean, it takes away. It takes away, like you say, because, I mean, their face is hidden for a reason. Their character is hidden for a reason. So why do you think 5 years later, oh, well, Jason hasn't been out for a while. Let's remake it. But let's make it to where he's a little kid and he was destructful and he liked to kill animals. You don't have to do that. Just give me the story, I mean, why can't Jason just rest in peace? Why do you have to keep bringing him back?
Well, that's another whole argument for another time. We know why they keep bringing them in. It's about the almighty dollar. Hey, that was successful once. Let's see if we can capture that success again. That's why they remake things. My number one is Andrew's number 5. That's so weird that Andrew and I flipped. I had the part at 5. He had it at 1. I have his number 5 at my number 1, Scarface. My number 1, Scarface is one of the greatest crime dramas of all time. Al Pacino. I mean, yeah, is he great as Michael Corleone? No doubt about it. Is it probably his greatest character he's ever played? Probably. You know, it's like two sides of a coin in a lot of ways. You could flip a coin and Tony Montana, his greatest character ever played. I don't know. I like Michael Corleone slightly better than Tony Montana, but for him to come across as a Latino, and you did not know that he's not even Latino. He comes across as a Latino. This guy is phenomenal. His drive and his he wants to succeed so bad. He can taste it, and not anybody can get in his way. And there's just so many great sequences in this film. And of course, Scarface is a remake of the 1932. I think, don't quote me, I believe it's a silent film. It is a silent film, Andy?
No, it's one of the first talkies, actually.
Okay.
Not first talkies, but yeah, it's a sound film. It's about like bootlegging and stuff like that. It's actually kind of based on Al Capone. So and it was actually one of the films that made them institute the Hays Code because they felt that it was too violent and the gangster was too much for audiences at the time.
Yeah, and then sorry, so I guess there was words in it. I couldn't remember if it was a silent film or not. I know it is black and white. It was a long time ago, but now they're talking about remaking it again with Leonardo DiCaprio. And you know, and I'm getting to the point where I'm a little bit older, and I have that kind of older person's mentality. Really, I can't see Leonardo DiCaprio capturing Al Pacino's character. You know, Al Pacino was so great as this character, and Michelle Pfeiffer's in it, F. Murray Abraham. I mean, I just don't understand how they can take this movie and remake it and make it better than that 1982 version, 1983 version. Yeah, Scarface is my number 1. I just think it's the greatest remake of all time, in my personal opinion. I just want to thank all my guests.
Wait, before we go.
All right, go ahead, Vinny.
Can I just say this?
All right, go ahead.
I would rather watch SpongeBob SquarePants for 4 hours than watch Scarface remake with Leonardo DiCaprio.
Well, good. Thank you.
I mean, I'd rather stab my own hand and watch it bleed than watch that again.
Well, thank you. I'm glad you're with me on Al Pacino's being the best. All right, so starting with Andrew, where can people find you, Andrew?
You can find me on Twitter at Cabzilla06 and find my YouTube channel called Cabzilla Productions.
Yeah, I can speak for. I've been watching some of Andrew's reviews. He's doing a great job on his YouTube channel. So everybody, go out there and check out his videos. Stephen Billings, where can people find you? I know everywhere, but tell people anyway.
You can find me on Facebook personally as Stephen Billings. Also, I run a show called channel called Film Club Central on YouTube. We do the Film Club Movie Show. We have Not Another Geek podcast. We have a slew of shows. We do reviews and everything on YouTube, and you can find us on Twitter and Instagram and all that shit.
And Vinny, where can people find you?
Well, you can always find me and Skip on the Best Damn Movie Show every Wednesday. The show gets up on Thursdays. Go to thebestdamnmovieshow.com for more information, and that's where you can find us.
And you can find me at Dan Skip Allen on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest, and Vinny Laspada on Facebook as well. I just want to thank everybody for doing the show this week. Remakes, we really had a fun time. I mean, we had a broad range of remakes. We had a nice discussion as well. So that's what I love about movies and what I like about talking to different people about movies, because everybody has different opinions and different. And hopefully we shared some movies that you may not have heard of, and you might want to go out there and watch. So thank you, everybody, and good night.
Peace.